Hello and greetings to all you fans of RPGs and of Dungeons and Dragons. On behalf of RPGmodsFan, I will be narrating most of this video and giving you a walkthrough and DM's guide of The Scrivener's Tale, D&D Adventure. The Scrivener's Tale is the 15th adventure in the Candlekeep Mysteries anthology book. This 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adventure was written by Stoddard. His adventure is meant for 14th level player characters. Like most of the adventures in Candlekeep Mysteries, this one starts out in Candlekeep with the player characters reading a tome. The tome in this adventure is called The Scrivener's Tale. The book is written in the Sylvan language. It tells the story of a selfish and amoral archfey, called the Princess of the Shadowglass. The princess is locked in a blood feud with the Queen of Air and Darkness, who is the ruler of the Gloaming Court in the Feywild. The princess is exiled from the Feywild, by the Queen, to the mortal realm, where she then lives among humans, elves, dwarves, gnomes, and halflings. The tale ends with a villain's monologue, promising bloody reprisals upon everyone the princess believes has wronged her. Normally, I would go into a little more detail on the adventure's start, but in this case, I will not. Because, as a dungeon master, I would change the start of this adventure, which I will discuss in the spoilers section of this video. From this point forward, this video will be discussing the adventure itself, and it will contain spoilers. Unless you are a dungeon master who will be running this adventure for their players, or are a player who already played through this adventure and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video. The adventure's synopsis would be as follows. A tome leaves its magical mark on the adventurers, as they struggle to contain the evil archfey trapped inside of it. In this adventure, the heroes must save themselves, and their journey takes them to the ruins of a lost and forgotten kingdom, and its ancient, subterranean library. The author, Stoddard, does provide a short summary of his adventure. I will, now, expand upon it. In Candlekeep, the adventurers are accidentally exposed to a cursed tome, called The Scrivener's Tale, which was supposed to be locked away. To me, this is a contrived start to the adventure. Instead, as a dungeon master, I would have the adventurers deliberately exposed to the cursed tome by an old enemy, which would make the adventure more personal and dramatic. I will expand upon this idea later in this video. Anyway, the adventurers are magically marked and afflicted with a debilitating supernatural fey curse, courtesy of Nintra Siata, the Princess of the Shadowglass, an archfey, that is trapped inside the tome. The Scrivener's mark and curse consumes them, granting both drawbacks and benefits, as their bodies are covered in text. To lift the curse, the adventurers must travel to Baldur's Gate, to track down the tome's previous owner, gather knowledge and information. The knowledge they gathered lead the adventurers to the subterranean ruins of a library that was once known as the Haven of the Red Quill of a forgotten kingdom. There, they end up confronting and defeating the princess. To permanently end the princess and the threat she poses to the world, the adventurers then need to complete a ritual. The one thing I find funny is that many elements of this adventure is similar to The Scrivener's Tale quest in the EverQuest 2i video game. And, yes, the quest is of the same name as the adventure. Both, ultimately, take place in a circular library chamber. Even the maps of both are similar. Nintra Siata is the villain of the adventure. She is a 9-foot, or almost 3-meter, tall, amoral, arrogant, and selfish archfey, who was also known by 3 titles, which are as follows: Princess of the Shadowglass, Lady of Dread Omens, and Seeker of the 3 Crowns. She is locked in a blood feud with the Queen of Air and Darkness, another archfey, who is the ruler of the Gloaming Court in the Feywild. The Queen exiled her to the mortal realm. For some time, the Princess of the Shadowglass then lives in the land of humans, elves, dwarves, gnomes, and halflings. She then again challenges the Queen, which, to make the long story short, got her imprisoned in The Scrivener's Tale tome. She is the one who cursed the adventurers with the Scrivener's mark. She is able to telepathically communicate with those cursed with the mark, and she is also able to deflect and misdirect inquires about the curse and her identity. In other words, identify, divination, legend lore, and such spells, will not properly work on the Scrivener's Tale tome, or on the marks. After all, this adventure is meant to be a mystery adventure. When Nintra communicates with the player characters, she does not reveal who she is, or her true nature. However, imprisonment in the Scrivener's Tale book has made her impatient and prone to telepathic outbursts that betray her cruel nature. Nintra wants the adventurers to find the haven of the Red Quill ruins. Once there, she wants the characters to destroy the ghost of Zirian. Zirian the Scrivener is the original author of the book. Destroying the ghost will release the Princess of the Shadowglass from her imprisonment. Nintra is quite a formidable foe. The proverbial final boss battle with her will probably be a challenge. I will now go through the adventure's timeline of events. My apologies in advance. I will be repeating some things I have already mentioned when discussing Nintra Ciata, the villain of the adventure. Almost a millennia ago, the human kingdom of Delumbyron fell. Its borders once stretched from Daggerford to the outskirts of Waterdeep. Over time, its ruins became buried, including its fabled library, once known as the Haven of the Red Quill. 900 years ago, an elf scribe, named Zerlan, writes the Scrivener's Tale book. The Princess of the Shadowglass and the Queen of Air and Darkness are arch-fays and are rivals. A long time ago, the Queen banished the princess from her court and to the mortal plane. Some time later, the Queen then imprisoned the princess within the Scrivener's Tale tome. The Princess of the Shadowglass also goes by the name of Nintra Ciata, as well as many other aliases. Machiel Rillin, a noble and a former adventurer from the city of Baldur's Gate, found the Scrivener's Tale book in the ruins of the Haven of the Red Quill. Candlekeep received the Scrivener's Tale book 10 years ago from Machiel Rillin. He stipulated that the book was to be locked away and never read. Before delivering the book to Candlekeep, Machiel was marked and cursed by the book. Via a paid-for-wish spell, Machiel was able to lift the curse from his person. The adventure starts with the player characters doing research in Candlekeep. Remelier, one of Candlekeep's avowed, is assisting the adventurers in their research. Along with other books, Remelier also picks up the cursed, the Scrivener's Tale book, by mistake, and delivers it to the player characters. When any member of the adventurers' party reads the book, then all of them will feel magic wash over them, and all of them get afflicted by a supernatural malediction, known as the Scrivener's Mark. Instead of the tome accidentally being given to the player characters, I, as a dungeon master, would have it deliberately given to them. Have a relative of a former arch-enemy of the player characters, who they have killed, deliberately give them the cursed, the Scrivener's Tale book. This relative seeks revenge on the adventurers for what they have done. This relative could already be an avowed of Candlekeep. Actually, this adventure does not need to start in Candlekeep. The book can be given to them at an inn or tavern they are frequenting. Once they are marked and cursed, the player characters can travel to Candlekeep to seek answers. You could have the vengeance-seeking relative cursed as well during the process. As an alternative to a relative, you could have a former henchman, companion, or lover of the former arch-enemy deliver the book to the player characters. I think this altered start of the adventure makes it more personal to the player characters and adds drama to it. After finishing a long or short rest, each of the adventurers discovers that 20% of their skin is covered in Elvish text. At this stage, each of the player characters are at level 1 of the Scrivener's Mark. Each level of the Scrivener's Mark grants a benefit and bestows a drawback. At dawn, once every 3 days, each character must make a DC 20 Charisma saving throw. On a failed save, the level of that character's mark increases by 1. Any character reaching the 5th level of the Scrivener's Mark transforms into a glass statue. If you were running this adventure, as the earlier suggested revenge side story, I would have each of the characters make a saving throw against the initial level 1 Scrivener's Mark, instead of them auto-failing it. Hence, each stage of the curse will be quite staggered amongst the party. However, I acknowledge that this would prolong and drag out this adventure. So, to keep this adventure from dragging out, when a character first fails their saving throw against the Scrivener's Mark, I would have that character auto-fail their saving throw against the rest of the levels of the Scrivener's mark. Each drawback gets progressively worse. At level 2, the character can no longer use magic potions, including healing potions. At level 3, the character cannot attune to their magic items, weapons, or armor. At level 4, the character become brittle as glass, and are vulnerable to bludgeoning, piercing and slashing damage. Spells, such as Dispel Magic, Greater Restoration, and Remove Curse, are not powerful enough to remove the Scrivener's mark. The tome's trapped Princess of the Shadowglass is the source and cause of the curse. She is also able to deflect and misdirect inquires about the curse. Ramelier suggests that the adventurers speak with Tellus Avasta, who is one of Candlekeep's great readers and specializes in curses. Unfortunately, Tellus is only able to give cryptic clues. However, Tellus does reveal that the Scrivener's Tale book was brought to Candlekeep by Machiel Rillen, an adventurer from a noble family in Baldur's Gate, and suggests that the player characters travel to Baldur's Gate and seek answers from Machiel. The next time the player characters rest or meditate, they will have a mysterious dream of event that took place almost a millennia ago, when the United Kingdoms of Elves, Dwarves and Humans fell to an invasion of a goblinoid army. The Queen of Air and Darkness now wants the Scrivener's Tale tome back. So, as the adventurers are traveling to Baldur's Gate, the Queen dispatches 4 Fomorians and 4 Wood Elf wizards to kill the party and get the tome back. When the first dispatch fails, at the Dungeon Master's discretion, the Queen can send more foes against the party. After the player characters were cursed by Nintra Siata with the first level of the Scrivener's mark, she is able to telepathically communicate with them. However, the princess chooses to do so after the Queen's first assault on the party. She does not reveal who she is, or her true nature, or her true identity to the party. However, she does reveal that agents of the Queen of Air and Darkness has attacked them. The princess insists that the characters free her from the tome, in exchange for which, she will end the Scrivener's curse placed upon them. Nintra Siata also reveals that Machiel Rillen found the tome from the Haven of the Red Quill ruins. She says she will end the curse when the tome is brought into the ruins. However, she does not know where the ruins are located. What she does not reveal is that Zirian's ghost is there. As a reminder, Zirian was the author of the Scrivener's Tale. She wants the player characters to destroy Zirian's ghost, so that she can free herself from the tome. As an additional note, the princess has a short temper. She will have a hard time concealing her true nature, if the characters are not too compliant, and/or are too inquisitive. After arriving in Baldur's Gate, the adventurers can make general inquiries about Machiel Rillen. They learn that the Rillen house and estate is in the upper city. Their inquiries also inform the characters that Machiel died 10 years ago. His family is now led by his niece, Yvandre Rillen. Yvandre Rillen was a former member of the Flaming Fist.
I serve the Flaming Fist!
The mercenary group tasked with keeping order in Baldur's Gate. Towards the end of her uncle's life, Yvandre has bitter feelings about Machiel. Regardless of her feelings, and assuming the player characters are courteous and respectful, she will give the characters useful information. Yvandre knows that Machiel discovered the Scrivener's Tale in a vault, deep beneath the ruins of Delumbyron. Delumbyron was the capital city of the lost kingdom of the same name, that once stood near where the town of Daggerford is now. Yvandre knows also that her uncle suffered briefly from a magical malady that produced strange writing on his skin, and which he finally overcame only by spending the last of the family's fortune on a wish spell. She assumes her uncle was killed by debt collectors, when, in reality, he was killed by agents of the Queen of Air and Darkness, who were looking for the book. Depending on how persuasive, and how well the player characters roleplay, Yvandre will reveal that she has her uncle's journals and letters. In exchange for equal share in whatever they find, she will let the adventurers view these journals and letters. Among the journals and letters, the adventurers can find the following: an old map labeled Delumbyron and Environs. From the map, they can decipher the location of the Haven of the Red Quill. A tome that details the history of Delumbyron and Falam. Falam was also called the Realm of Three Crowns, and was an empire of elves, dwarves and humans. The smaller kingdom of Delumbyron rose in Falarm's place, only to fall itself, in turn. Machiel was seeking a treasure called the Shadow Glass. Machiel left a cryptic letter for his family, which, before now, no one has read. In it, he writes,
To my family, forgive me the vanity that took me from you, and must soon claim my life or soul. You know how ambition corrupted my love for you. I pray that someone avenges the evil done by Nitra Seota, Princess of the Shadow Glass, Lady of Dread Omens, Seeker of the Three Crowns. But spend not your own lives against it. The Scrivener bound her in his haven, and only there can I be free of her. But it is too late for me.
Thus, the player character's next stop is the ruins of the Haven of the Red Quill, which lies in the outskirts of Daggerford. At your discretion, you can also add other dungeon complexes that are hidden amid the ruins of Delumbyron. As the adventurers are descending into and exploring the ruins, the Princess of the Shadow Glass telepathically urges them on, and urges them to destroy the ghost of Zirian, the Scrivener, whom she describes as the Queen's evil pawn, and claims is the same pawn who cursed the party with his Scrivener's mark. At first, Zirian's ghost will ignore the party. However, the ghost will fight back, if attacked, shouting, "You shall not free her. I will protect the free peoples of the world against the Princess of the Shadow Glass until the end of time." Destroying the ghost frees Nintra Seota from the tome, and she materializes in the Great Library Chamber of the ruins. If the party, instead, parleys with the ghost, it will describe a ritual to summon Nintra Seota, and a ritual to end her existence. All the while, Nintra will telepathically shout that the ghost is lying. Either way, the adventurers will end up fighting the princess in the Great Library Chamber. She can and will summon 6 glass shadow warriors to aid her in the battle. Even if Nintra is killed, but the ritual to end her is not performed, then she will reform in an hour, and, likely, escape the chamber. I will now walk through the Adventures 1 map. However, before I do so, I will point out the various locations mentioned in the adventure. The player characters start off in Candlekeep, which is a little more than halfway down on the displayed map. Baldur's Gate lies north of Candlekeep. Further north, lies Daggerford, where the ruins of the Haven of the Red Quill lies near. Displayed is the adventure's map of the Haven of the Red Quill ruins. The map is probably easier to decipher with the areas labeled, as they are now. One statue appears to be carved into the walls of chambers numbered H2, H5 and H6. One appears to be an elf, another a dwarf, and the last, a human. In reality, these statues are stone golems. The stone golems will animate if anyone tries to breach the sealed door that leads to the Great Library, from chamber number H4. In addition, 2 mummies per character emerge out of the walls. These guardians then head over to chamber number H4 to prevent the door from being opened. Each stone golem has a rune key on its chest. All 3 rune keys are needed to unlock the sealed door. However, removing the rune key will activate that stone golem, as well as releasing 2 mummies per character in the room the stone golem is located in. From the internet, I was able to find a color map of the ruins. The only way in is via a narrow spiral staircase that descends 50 feet, or 15 meters, from the surface. A weathered mosaic decorates the stairwell, depicting dwarves, elves, and humans working together. At chamber number H2 is a collapsed archway that blocks the way into the rest of the ruins. The back wall of chamber number H5 is a stone fresco that depicts several human, elf, and dwarf wizards battling a black dragon. One of the wizards in the fresco is holding a removable iron wand. Removing the wand triggers a chain lightning spell that targets the character attempting to remove the wand, and anyone within melee range of that character. The black dragon is clutching in one of its foreclaws a small chest with a small hole. Inserting the iron wand into the hole will unpetrify the adult black dragon that was trapped in the fresco. The black dragon has no quarrel with the player characters, but attacks them if they harm it, or stand in its way. The floor of chamber number H6 is covered with slippery mold, that presents a slipping hazard, causing those who do slip, to fall prone. Chamber number H4 was once the reading room. Teleport spells into the Great Library chamber will not work. The only way into the Great Library is through the sealed door in this room. Also within this room is the ghost of Zirian. At first, Zirian's ghost will ignore the party, but will converse with the adventurers, if they try to speak with him. However, the ghost will fight back, if attacked. Zirian knows the rituals to summon forth Nintra Siata from out of the Scrivener's tome, and to end Nintra's existence. Both must be performed within the Great Library Chamber. This chamber was once the library and scriptorium, of the Haven of the Red Quill. In its center is a ritual circle, inscribed into its stone floor. It is here, the final boss battle with Nintra Siata, the Princess of the Shadowglass, will take place. Her first action, which will be a bonus action, will be to summon 6 Shadowglass warriors to protect her. Use the Gladiator stat block for these warriors. After Nintra is defeated and the characters are freed from the threat of the Scrivener's mark. The adventure might wrap up in several different ways, depending on what actions the player characters have taken during the course of the adventure. For instance, there may be other ruins of Delumbyron to find and explore, some of which may lead into an adventure in the Underdark. Whether they want it or not, ending the threat of the Princess of the Shadowglass brings the adventurers to the attention of the Queen of Air and Darkness. The Queen has no physical form, but she can appear as a dark-haired beautiful, but terrifying female fairy. She can become a powerful, but unpredictable, ally or patron, for the party. The wealth of knowledge in the Great Library of the Haven of the Red Quill represents an amazing find for sages and scholars throughout Faerie. The adventurers can donate the collection to Candlekeep. However, if they made a deal with Yvandre Rillin, she would rather see the collection sold off. If the player characters freed the black dragon, and allowed it to escape, it will become a serious menace to the nearby town of Daggerford. Then, there is the possibility, where the adventurers have defeated the Princess of the Shadowglass, but have not completed the ritual, that would end her existence. In this case, the princess becomes a new archenemy of the player characters, going forward. The adventure's plot hook is pretty weak. Having the player characters cursed accidentally will seem quite contrived, and will seem like their player agency is being taken away from them. However, having the player characters deliberately exposed to the powerfully cursed tome, by a relative of a defeated foe, seems more logical to me, as well as more dramatic. Your players, to say the least, will not be happy that their characters are being nerfed by the Scrivener's mark. However, the Scrivener's tale has many elements and potential of being a great adventure. It has a great villain, and a great dungeon delve ending location. It just seems the middle part of the adventure needs to be expanded upon, such as adding additional ruins and dungeons to explore. The adventure is very linear, and does not have any red herrings to throw off the party. In other words, it just seems too short, and needs more additions in its middle part. If you have any ideas on how to make this adventure even better, please share them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, from all of us, at the RPGmodsFan channel. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. We do like feedback. Till next time, we wish you well. Cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.